Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're going to talk about something that could totally change the way you think about money, inspired by the story of two very different father figures. And trust me, this isn't just about getting rich, it's about getting free.
So just imagine growing up and hearing two completely opposite pieces of advice about your future. On one side, you've got the advice that, let's be honest, most of us have heard 1,000 times. Go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job. You know, the path we're all told to take. But on the other side, something totally different. Don't work for money. Instead, build assets and make your money work for you.
Now, this isn't just a hypothetical. This was the actual reality for author Robert Kiyosaki. He had a poor dad, that was his biological father, a really smart, highly educated man. And then he had a rich dad, his best friend's father, who was an incredible financial educator. And these two men had completely different ways of looking at life and, especially, money.
So, poor dad, even with his PhD, really believed in job security, climbing the corporate ladder and saving money. For him, safety was everything. But the crazy thing is, he struggled with money his whole life. Then you have rich dad. He didn't have nearly as much formal schooling, but he was focused on completely different things, building businesses, investing in assets, and taking smart, calculated risks to really build wealth.
And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Look at poor dad's formula for life. Study hard, get a good job, get a salary, and then get buried in debt payments, EMIs, for the next 40 years. It's a straight line that ends at retirement, if you're lucky. But rich dad's formula? It's a cycle. You learn, you build assets, your money starts making more money for you, and that cycle, well, that's what creates real freedom.
So what's the big takeaway here? It really boils down to one huge difference in thinking. The poor and the middle class, they work incredibly hard for their money. But the rich, they have their money work hard for them. Let's actually see what that looks like in practice.
Let's bring this home, right? For a salaried person, your cash flow is kind of like a one-way street. You work all month, you get paid, you pay your bills and taxes, and the cycle starts all over again. But an asset builder, they create things that put money into their pocket, even when they're not actively working. An asset is just something that makes you money, whether it's a little property earning you rent or even a blog that's making ad revenue while you sleep.
And that, right there, is the magic of money working for you. Every single rupee that your assets earn is like a tiny little employee working for you 24/7, never taking a break, just building your wealth. This is how you get off the hamster wheel of trading your precious time for a paycheck.
Okay, so how did Rich Dad actually teach this stuff? Well, it wasn't in a classroom, that's for sure. It was through a simple and honestly incredibly frustrating little job that was specifically designed to make a point.
It all kicked off when a 9-year-old Robert and his best friend Mike got tired of being the poor kids. They went to Rich Dad and straight up asked him, "Can you teach us how to be rich?" Rich Dad agreed, but instead of giving them a lecture, he gave them a job.
And his offer? A whopping 10 cents an hour. Yeah, you heard that right. It was an insultingly low wage, but that was the whole point. He wasn't trying to pay them. He was trying to teach them a lesson that was worth way, way more than a few cents.
So after 3 weeks of working his tail off for pocket change, Robert finally snapped. He marched up to Rich Dad and told him how unfair it all was. And you know what? Rich Dad just smiled. He said that feeling, that anger, that frustration, that was the first lesson. It's the same feeling most adults have every single day at their jobs, but they're too scared to say anything, so they just stay trapped.
And this is where the real genius of the lesson comes in. It was never about the low pay. Not really. The entire point was to prove that when it comes to money, we're not driven by logic. We're not driven by spreadsheets. Our financial lives are controlled by powerful, raw emotions.
So what are these big, powerful emotions he's talking about? Well, Rich Dad boils it down to two main drivers. First, there's fear. The fear of not being able to pay your bills, the fear of getting fired, the fear of what other people will think. And pushing against that fear is its partner, greed. The desire for a bigger paycheck, a fancier phone, a new car, all the shiny things that money can buy.
And when you mix these two emotions together, that constant fear of not having enough and that endless desire for more, what do you get? You get the modern-day trap that Rich Dad famously called the rat race.
So what is the rat race, really? Let's break it down. It's this endless cycle where you get up, you go to work to earn a salary just so you can pay for all the stuff you've bought.
Often stuff you think are assets but are actually liabilities. You get a raise, so you spend more, and now you have to work even harder to keep up. You're running faster and faster on that wheel, but you're not actually getting anywhere.
Now this slide, this is where it gets really real, especially for so many of us. Just look at how this plays out. It starts with that first job. And what's the first thing you do with that paycheck? You get a new phone on EMI, then maybe a bike, then a car loan, then a home loan. With every step, your life gets more expensive. And before you know it, you've spent a lifetime working, and you look around and realize you have a mountain of debt but no real assets to show for it.
Okay, so if our emotions are what get us stuck in this trap, how the heck do we get out? Well, that was Rich Dad's final piece of advice in this whole lesson. It's not about working harder, it's about thinking differently.
And it all comes down to this one powerful idea. As long as you let fear and greed make your financial decisions for you, you will always be a slave to money. But the moment you learn to stop, take a breath, and think, to see opportunities where others just see risk, you flip the whole script. Money stops being your master, and it becomes your best employee.
So that leaves us with a really important question we all have to ask ourselves. When it comes to your money, who's really in charge? Are you reacting emotionally, letting that fear and that desire pull all the strings? Or are you taking control, thinking strategically, and making your money work for you? Because the answer to that question, that's what will decide your entire financial future.